Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cracking open a set of documents that lay out a real constitutional showdown.
It's a high-stakes confrontation, for sure.
Right, and it's moved way past just parliamentary debate. This has landed, well, squarely in the courts. Our mission today is to unpack these sources so you can understand this legal friction point.
Which is all about the delayed election of the leader of the opposition in the National Assembly.
Exactly.
And this is, a classic case. You have these mandatory legal duties clashing with what's being perceived as political obstruction.
And the key players here.
On one side, you have the We Invest in Nationhood Party, or LIN. They're the main opposition. On the other, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Manzoor Nadir.
And the escalation is what's so significant here. I mean, this isn't just some internal squabble. The opposition, through their attorney, has issued a formal, legally binding pre-action warning.
And that's the big step. That's what you do when you think litigation is the only path left.
So for this deep dive, we're going to dissect the specifics. We'll look at the exact constitutional language, that very tight 14-day deadline they've set.
And maybe most importantly, we have to analyze the timeline of events, the delays that led the opposition to say, okay, only a judge can fix this.
We're basically watching the friction point between procedure and constitutional necessity.
Maximum friction.
Okay, so let's unpack that threat right away. When a major opposition party sends a pre-action letter, it really is like setting a timer on the Speaker's office. What is WN actually demanding here?
The mechanism is that letter. It's the required legal step before they can formally file in the high court.
It's like a final warning shot.
Exactly. And the last chance to comply before things get, well, expensive and time-consuming for everyone.
So they aren't just, complaining to the media. This has teeth.
Oh, it has teeth. And the demand is crystal clear. Their attorney, Sian Durjan, states that the Speaker must convene a meeting of the non-governmental members.
Just the opposition members.
Right, just them, for the sole purpose of electing their leader. And the deadline for this is strict, 14 days.
14 days, and if he doesn't...
Then they file suit in the high court. Simple as that.
14 days feels incredibly compressed for a constitutional issue, especially one involving the head of the legislature. What is the legal foundation that makes them so confident a court would actually back them up on this?
Their confidence comes from one very specific part of the Constitution, Article 184, Section 1.
Okay.
And according to the sources, Durjan's letter just hammers this point home again and again. He says the Speaker's duty under this article is, and this is the key phrase, unqualified and mandatory.
Unqualified and mandatory. Wow. That language is, it's designed to eliminate any wiggle room.
Right. Any and all wiggle room. It suggests this duty exists no matter what the Speaker wants or what the parliamentary calendar looks like.
So the 16 WN members of Parliament are essentially arguing there's, nothing stopping him?
That's the exact phrase they use. They see it as an automatic trigger. It's not something the Speaker can just schedule when it's convenient. It's a job that has to be done.
So if the duty is truly mandatory, the only defense the Speaker could have would be some, unavoidable external problem.
Which the opposition insists does not exist.
And this is where the timeline of delay becomes so important and honestly where it gets really interesting. The sources lay out a very specific history of what they see as missed opportunities.
It all starts on November 3rd, the very first sitting of the 13th Parliament.
Day one.
And that very day, the W members wrote to the Speaker. They requested a meeting be held right then, that same day, to elect the opposition leader.
So they weren't wasting any time. They wanted it done immediately. What happened?
Well, the formal request, nothing happened. No action was taken. But, and this is a key detail from the sources, there was a verbal exchange.
Okay.
MP Natasha Singh Lewis spoke directly with Speaker Nadir. And while he didn't hold the meeting on November 3rd, he reportedly said something really important.
What was that?
He said, it doesn't have to wait until the next sitting.
Oh, that's crucial. That's the Speaker himself acknowledging that this duty, this Article 184 requirement, is totally separate from the formal parliamentary schedule.
Exactly. But even with that acknowledgement, nothing happened.
And that leads to their main argument about the delay.
It does. Durjan argues there was no impediment to holding the meeting that day. He even adds a logistical detail to back it up.
Which is?
That all the non-governmental MPs were present at the Arthur Chung Conference Center and lingered long after the sitting for political and social purposes.
That detail about them lingering is so politically powerful. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The opposition is physically there waiting. The venue is available.
The personnel and the location are secured.
But wait, If they felt so strongly about it on November 3rd, why wait until, November 18th to send the formal legal warning? Why that 2-week gap?
That gap tells you a lot, I think. It suggests they might have tried other channels first, back channels, political pressure, before going nuclear with the courts.
It also makes their legal case stronger, right?
Much stronger. Now they can say, look, we gave him 2 full weeks after his verbal assurance, and his continued silence proves he's reluctant to do his job.
They're building a paper trail of inaction. But could the speaker argue that even a meeting of just opposition members still needs some kind of formal administrative setup? A certain number of hours' notice?
He could, but the sources don't provide any official justification from his side for the delay.
And that silence is what W is really exploiting here.
It is. After that verbal exchange on the 3rd, MP St. Louis wrote to the speaker again, just asking for an update. And the sources are clear. There has been no response.
No response at all.
That complete silence from November 3rd to the 18th is the legal foundation for this pre-action warning.
So let's pivot to the bigger picture. The so what of all this. Why is this specific position, leader of the opposition, so critical that its absence warrants threatening the head of the legislature with court action?
This is the absolute core of it. The leader of the opposition isn't just a political figurehead. They are a key constitutional office holder.
With actual defined responsibility.
Important constitutional responsibilities under the law. When that office is empty, actual government oversight mechanisms are, they're paralyzed.
Can you give us some specifics? What's actually stalled right now because of this vacancy?
Sure. Think about checks and balances. The leader of the opposition is fundamental for critical appointments. They often have, say, statutory consultation rights.
Meaning they legally have to be consulted.
Yes. Or they might even have the power to nominate members to key independent bodies, like the Integrity Commission, which oversees the financial conduct of public officials.
Or procurement bodies, maybe.
Procurement bodies, exactly. The ones that ensure transparency in big government contracts.
So if the government needs to fill a spot on the Integrity Commission, that whole process is just frozen. Frozen until there's a recognized opposition leader to consult.
Exactly. The entire system of institutional accountability is put on hold. And this is what the attorney, Dujon, was getting at. He wrote that it's inconceivable that the Constitution could have ever contemplated that your mandatory obligation could be unduly delayed to some uncertain time in the unknown future.
That's a direct challenge to the spirit of the Constitution. It's not just about procedure, it's about the basic function of government.
That's the argument. He urged the speaker to act with all reasonable speed commensurate to the importance of the public functions. He's saying the delay itself is creating a constitutional crisis.
Let's turn to the official response then, or the lack of one, as of November 18th. What's been the reaction from the Speaker's office to this very public threat?
Well, news source reporters tried to get a comment directly from Speaker Mansour Nadir, and they reported that their calls were futile.
Which, of course, just adds fuel to the fire.
It perfectly fits the opposition's narrative of deliberate delay.
And what about the clerk of the National Assembly, Sherlock Isaacs? He's the guy who handles the actual logistics, right?
He is, and his comments are pretty revealing. Isaacs told news source that he was not informed of this latest letter from Wynne.
Wait, really? The Speaker gets a formal pre-action legal letter, and the head of administration for Parliament doesn't know about it.
That's what he said, which raises a huge question. Is it a massive administrative breakdown, or is it something more strategic?
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. What if the opposition deliberately leaked the letter to the press before it formally worked its way through the system?
So they could get maximum political impact.
Right. They know the press will call the clerk will have to say he doesn't know anything about it, which then makes the speaker look even more like he's dragging his feet. It's a smart, tactical play.
And what else did Isaac say?
He confirmed that a date has not been set for the next formal sitting of the Assembly. And, critically, he also couldn't say if a separate date had been set for this specific election meeting.
So that confirms the opposition's entire grievance.
Perfectly. Despite the mandatory duty, despite the Speaker's own words that it didn't need to wait, despite 2 weeks passing, nothing has been scheduled. That complete absence of a date is what the High Court is now going to be asked to rule on.
This has been incredibly insightful. So to sum it up for everyone listening, you have an opposition party basically saying, we're done with parliamentary games.
They're going straight to the judiciary.
To enforce what they call an unqualified and mandatory constitutional duty against the head of the legislature himself. They're arguing that the paralysis this vacancy is causing, stalling appointments to bodies like the Integrity and Procurement Commissions. That outweighs any procedural excuse the Speaker might have.
And that leads to the final, really provocative question for you to think about as you watch this all unfold. If a duty is explicitly called mandatory in the Constitution, how will a court define undue delay?
Right. What's the legal standard for that?
And how does the judiciary define reasonable speed when it's the legislative branch that it's trying to force into action? This specific clash, its outcome, is going to set a huge precedent for the future boundaries between legislative discretion and constitutional enforcement.